Hello and welcome to the Final Phoenix podcast. Today I have Robert Jones here with me, and we're going to talk about the power of community, networking, and referrals. And we're going to share some stories and also explain the importance of all of these things. So, Robert, why don't you just stop in and say hi?
Hello, everybody.
I wanted to bring up this topic because I did open a brand new community, the Soulpreneurs Global Community, and we have people from all over the world coming in and introducing themselves and basically building a support system for conscious entrepreneurs. And I'm really excited about that. And I want to talk about the power of community because we are a collective, of course. We're all of we are all one. We could talk about that in a spiritual sense. But essentially, we learn so much from each other as the student and as the teacher and as mentors and as friends. And when we build relationships, we are given indications to us, in a sense, to what our next step in our business can be. So, in a way, we all support each other. And I say in a way, but it's multiple ways essentially. Robert, what are your thoughts on the power of community and just bringing people together and learning from each other? And
Well, you know that saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know. I mean, I don't know if that they were talking about that, but everything that we've ever gotten in our life has usually been from somebody else. My instructor used to tell me that you'll never know how many doors were opened for you by somebody else. Um, and the more I look back in the past, the more I see that how many people maybe did me favors that I didn't even wasn't even aware of. I wonder how many are doing it to this day. I always kind of feel a little guilty, but I try to pay it forward by doing the same thing and not expecting anything out of it. But without the power of others, you might as well be on a hill in the mountains of Tibet being a monk. You might help yourself, but you're not going to help other people. Unfortunately, it's not something that everybody knows how to do. And we've had discussions before about extroverts and introverts. I'm a complete introvert. Crowds, stress me out and steal my energy. But I also love people. So it's not a good or bad thing. It's just that some people are not comfortable, but it is a skill. And like any skill, it needs to be learned. And any skill that can be learned can be improved. Anything that can be improved can eventually be mastered. So I think the power of community, getting yourself out there and being more aware of it might, for some people, might take what they feel like is a lot of energy at first, but then once they get, it's like anything, learning anything new is hard, right? But once you get it, it's a necessity. You can't not show up. You can't just not show up and expect people to show up. It just doesn't work. So yeah, so I this is a great conversation to have. And you do have people that are natural. Um, they're just out there. They're these people. My sister's one of them, right? Um, just loves to talk to people, loves to see what they're doing in their life, and is just happy to see people walking down the street that say hi and stuff. And then there's people that don't do that. So you got to figure out which one you are, and then you have to go to work like anything. So where do you want to go with this conversation?
yeah, well, we'll just let it unfold and flow. What you said that, we get breaks from others, reminded me of a quote that I heard from like a famous author. I think it might have been Neil Gaiman who said that absolutely everything he created was because he knew somebody who knew somebody and somebody talked to somebody else and something else happened because of a conversation. And he said like that's how his success was built. So, not only that, I did come to the realization eventually that our success as human beings is actually dependent on each other because for a few reasons. One is that there are some important relationships that unfold so that we can all support each other in our endeavors and for us to reach our own definition of success and prosperity. And without us all showing up and meeting these people, we can't do that, right? So we can't support each other, but also when we support each other, we're getting more support back from the universe. That's almost like, the law of attraction and karma and all of those things. When we say you get what you give, right? So if you're supporting your fellow teammates in that sense of completion, like I like to say, and not competition, just really supporting each other, supporting one person, encouraging one person, cheering on one person, you're going to get that back, and it'll kind of fuel, we fuel each other and we light each other up. And I can say, just from being a part of the community that I've been a part of, they do, I'm challenged to think differently. I'm challenged to think new thoughts. I'm challenged to move into a space of curiosity and wonder and ask myself different questions than I would if I were just by myself, right?
Well,
Um,
well,
so that's my thought about community and just how we support each other on an energetic level, practically and, energetically.
a thought occurred to me when you were sitting there talking about that. When I said, how many doors were open for you, and I always like that when my instructor said that, because at the time I was really self-centered, so I didn't really realize people were doing me favors. However, I just came to realize this, that I have my business and my for the last 37 years career and everything because of a conversation that I overheard in the lobby of the place I used to take martial art lessons. The instructor was talking to a higher belt about needing an instructor as I was leaving. And I just overheard it. And I said, oh, that would be fun to do one day. So if I would have never heard that conversation, I maybe not. I don't know what life had in store for me, but that conversation that was held in public got me where I'm at today. Okay. And so then I was like, a month later, I was an instructor. So because they really desperately needed one. So I was like, yeah, but he wasn't talking to me. I overheard it and I made a comment. I just simply put myself out there and said, I'd love to do that one day. That's so cool. And I went home. And the next day he talked to me in the office. So that just thinking about it, I didn't realize that a huge door in my life was just opened by me eavesdropping on a conversation. And again, if I wanted to just butted in there, who knows where I'd be right now. I like where I'm at, so I'd probably be the same place, but still, that's that's listening, but it's also having the guts to say something, having the guts who was I? I was just a young instructor. I mean, I was, to me, in my own mind, I had no right to even say that. It's like technically I was kind of thinking about 10 years down the road, but my instructors saw some talent, heard what I said, well, if you have a desire, let's see if it works for you. Let's see if it builds. And it worked. So yeah. So, what would have been the worst thing that could have happened if I said something and they said, oh yeah, one day, right? Nothing bad would have happened. I would have been in the same boat. But more people would have knowledge, understanding that. So putting yourself out there sometimes means opening your mouth and just saying what's on your mind and being okay with it.
Yeah, I wanted to say when it comes to us, conscious entrepreneurs, marketing our businesses and marketing what we do, there are some practical things that we can learn, like headlines and social media platform posting, email network or email nurture systems and all that. But I feel like the newer marketing, and I don't really want to go too deep into this because this is just something I've noticed is that marketing these days is really referral based, it's community based, and it's essentially us individually being able to show up with our full authenticity and our voice. And I feel like when we can do that in a community, we automatically create the opportunities for networking and networking events and then connecting with different audiences and also referrals. I've built an entire business before, a six-figure business. I did zero advertising, I did zero marketing. And luckily I didn't need to do any of that stuff because when I did try it didn't, like I sent an email out once and I was just like, yeah, I don't even know how to do that. But I built that business on referrals only and networking only and just having conversations with people. And then people would just come to me. Right. So I feel that community is the easiest way to get your products and your programs and your services out there because of the strengths that just live within making these connections with people.
Well, I think referral marketing or getting referrals or community or however you want to say that is, anybody that you talk to, they'll always say that their best customers are referred to them. Um, they're because they know what they want. They already trust you. They have heard from you. So we do it all the time. When we got our hot water heater flooded, remember, you got on Facebook and asked a friend, and the friend said these guys did a good job, and we didn't even call around. We just called that person. They were nice on the phone. They came down that day. They did it, and bang, we were happy. I don't know if we got a good deal or not. It wasn't even the point. The point was that we wanted somebody that we could trust, so we wouldn't have to second guess whether they did a good job or not and have to call them back out. So we would have never got that if somebody wanted, if you wanted to have asked. So there was asking, and then if two, if the person didn't speak up. And I often wonder, like when I was starting out, somebody would ask me, what do you do for a living? And I didn't know anything about elevator pitches. I didn't know anything about getting curiosity. And all I knew is if I told them I did martial arts, they did some stupid sound and they put their hands up and they would say something about a dark alley. And it was just stupid. It would just end the conversation. Okay. So I learned to have fun with it, but never tell them that because I didn't know how to actually explain what I did. And the closer you are, this might just be me, but the closer you are to what you do and the more you love what you do, the harder it is to explain it to somebody on a surface level. In fact, I to this day I have a couple of students that can explain what I do in shorter terms and better. I mean, I'm like, they'll tell me what I'm doing. I'm just like, that's brilliant. I got to write that down. That's my next marketing piece. So I think this is a good topic. I don't know what people. I'll have to get into the group and look. I wonder what people. Well, what do you think? You talk to more people than I do on stuff like this. What is their biggest struggle? What do you think is right now as the people you've talked to so far? I know it could change tomorrow, but what's everybody's biggest struggle about what we're the topic we're talking
Um,
about?
Well, one thing is that when we go through deep spiritual, like healing and awakening and seeking and searching, it's a very intense inside job that we're on for quite a while, right? Like we're healing our shadow, we're learning about ourselves, we're reflecting, we're seeing ourselves and everything internally and externally. We're coming to a lot of different realizations. So there's a lot of learning there. There's a lot of applying what we're learning too. So when we get to a space where we're like, oh, we have these gifts or we want to share this thing with the world, it almost feels like we're reversing our energy. So we've been reflecting so long, almost becoming introverted if in a sense, and then or going into the cave, as I've said before, becoming a hermit, and then having to use what we've learned in that internal environment to step out into the light and say, oh, this is what I offer. And it feels very opposite of what we've been doing. So we're almost, I want to say, hesitant as to how we put ourselves out there because we don't realize um, I don't want to say that it's exhaustive amount of energy, but we do need to make sure that the world can find us, right? Because nobody knows that anybody exists until they see you. And luckily in the online space, we have so many opportunities, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, all these social media platforms that we can use as tools. Um, but people will generally post every once in a while and then expect it to like it feels like we're doing a lot, but really we're not doing a lot. Another thing, there's so many ways to get ourselves out there, like writing books or just building connections one at a time. Um, Moving into communities and meeting new people. But it all feels very strange and it all feels like scary too, because we don't really know
Do,
what
do
it
you,
is, what it's like, right? It's like we
well,
have to do a different type of learning, but it's more of like an applying and really stepping into our authentic voice, and like speaking up. And that's a little bit, it's way different than what we've been doing.
I think you hit on something here. I want to go back to because I just kind of got a little realization here. So we spend a lot of time maybe looking inward, figuring crap out and deciding what we want, whatever that is. That's a process and it takes time, lots of time sometimes. And then somebody asks you what you do or what whatever they ask you. And it seems like almost maybe it's uh, we've spent 3 years of work and we're going to blab that out in a sentence. It almost seems like we cheapen it. Oh, yeah, I teach martial arts. It's like, well, let me tell you the whole story. Not everybody needs that story, but I'm just thinking that a lot of us might think that, like, how do I pack 8 years of transformation into a conversation to get a person interested in it? And I think that takes a practice. And it does take a while to learn how to talk about what you do and how you do it and why you do it. And I think the reason people maybe aren't comfortable about it because it did take them a couple of years to come to this conclusion. I mean, I know people work on themselves for one issue for 3 to 4 years, and to just have a simple 10-second conversation almost feels like you're cheapening it, even though you're not. So I wonder how many people that don't put themselves out there as much as they probably should need to learn that it's okay to shortcut it a little bit. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Be able to have a conversation about it on a surface level when really that feels wrong, because to you anyways, it's a very deep thing, but not to everybody. So everything I've always learned is you make a statement in such a way that if that person isn't interested, it allows them to say, interesting, and walk off or change the subject. And you don't have to go into yourself, but you say it in such a way, if it sparks that person's desires or needs to know, then you're open for it. So you can't just blab it all out in the beginning, because as an example, as talk practical, if I want to talk about what I do, and I'm at a networking group or something where it's appropriate, and somebody comes up and says, what do you do? And I say, one of the things I do is I teach kids, how to be confident. I leave the word martial arts out, right? I teach, and if they have a kid and they need that, they'll say, interesting. How do you do that? My kid could really use that. That's an invitation to talk. Now, if I were just to start that conversation and try to convert that person, we've all had people do that in our lives, and you meet them somewhere and they automatically start trying to sell you something. We're like, oh, back off. But if that person doesn't have a kid that needs confidence, they'll say, oh, really? Oh, that's interesting. And they'll just go on with the conversation, and you can choose to either walk off or you can choose to engage. So I think a lot of this is probably learning how to say the right thing and to allow people to be invited into your life. And if they don't want to be invited, allow them to walk out too. And that way you don't spend a conversation,
Mhm.
10, 20, 30 minutes on something that the person is falling asleep and
Yeah.
they're not interested in, and they don't even have they're not even your customer. Now, that's not to say that every single person you have to screen and, do that. But as conversations go, I mean, when I meet somebody new, almost always the second sentence out their mouth is, what do you do? And they're not doing that to get into my life. It used to bother me. I was like, what do you care what I do? But it's an appropriate question. So I think talking about putting yourself out there and stuff, I think if I had a group of people that were needing to do that, I would first off tell them, what's your answer to that question? What do you do? And like what you just said, if you've just spent 3 years working on yourself and you've come up with a solution that's really good for people that were in your boat, and you can get that down to 2 or 3, months or something, and that's a hard thing. What do I do? It feels like you're shortchanging it. I think we need to get over that and not and realize that some people don't need the whole life story, the
Yeah.
whole backstory.
True. And I think that's, one of the benefits of the online platforms is that as you post, you get people that are interested in what you're doing, whether it's like they love listening to your content, or they want to meet you, or they want to work with you. It kind of does that self-filtering out. But, since we're talking about the struggles that I'm noticing individuals have and that I've had myself, this is part of my story too, which is why I'm where I'm at, saying still seeing people, struggling in these ways, is that one is that we do confuse putting ourselves out there with putting our message out there. So if we think about that it's about us, of course, we're going to have all of these thoughts about us, right? But if we put the message that we're sharing out there and remember that it's about other people, then it's much more powerful. It's much more less stressful. But if we're thinking about ourselves, then we're going to continuously trip over our own feet. So that's one thing I see happen, is because there's a lot of the unknowns there. There's a lot of worry there. There's a lot of fear there. So again, thinking about the message that you're sharing and the healing and while you're evolving, of course, because we become more vulnerable and more authentic as we go throughout that stage.
So
Um,
I think the language that you use, and since we kind of tie this into marketing and stuff, sometimes people skip a stage of marketing and they go into this. If basically, I saw this the other day. And this person on my feed said, if you're the person they're looking for, blankety blanketed blank, I'm the person to help you. I don't know who this person is. I just went past it. That's way too much. But I'm not saying that it's wrong for what he did. What I'm saying is, if you skip to that stage and you haven't comfortably got to that stage, you're going to come across all incorrect, and people are going to like not follow you. If he were to change his wording slightly and said, in my life, I've had a lot of struggles, and I have found that three things work very simple, and they changed my life. Maybe these will help you. I don't know. I'm here to share. I probably would have listened to it. And if it resonated with me, I would have bought his product, or I would have got more information. But as it was, he was almost pushy, right? And that there's a line that becomes, are you just doing like what you see on TV, a commercial? There's millions of people watching the TV show, millions of people watching the commercial. They're going to tell you exactly what to do, and they're going to use those tactics. But when you're doing what they call it social media for a reason, if you're even in a group that's face to face, or whether you are in a group that's online, these people are not going to want to be have your product or your views shoved down their throat, and
yeah.
we have a reaction to that immediately to swipe, get him off me. And this guy seemed like, I don't even know what he did, but he seemed like a good guy. But as soon as he started telling me what type of person I was if I didn't do it, I was totally turned off.
Yeah, we just check
And
out. Yeah.
yeah, just check out. So when people are out there trying to get themselves out there, the thing that they need to think about is, just invite people into your
Yeah.
life.
Yeah,
That's it. It's
exactly.
their
And
choice, right? It's their
yeah,
choice to come along or not.
yeah, I love that. It is an invitation. And what you said, it's like when we're telling people what to do and we're using like fake scarcity and like fake exclusivity and all those things, if I said that word right, we're almost pushing people away because it feels icky, right? So that's why I love the idea of building, um, implementing community into a marketing system or your marketing structure and what you do, because you do get a few things. One is storytelling. It's very powerful. We know that it's built into our psyche. Storytelling is like basically built into our DNA. So I liked that you mentioned that. Also, people want to be able to connect. So we want to be able to relate to other people. And then community. And of course, we can connect with other people through community.
Hey,
Um,
so the storytelling, which is that's how that's life. I mean, as I tell stories all the time. But just for people getting involved in this, you got to share your story. I remember listening to somebody on your group, and she had a great story about why she got involved in something. I was like, well, wow, that story interests me. If you remember that. But what marketers will tell you to do and stuff is, to kind of have a story, and then they give you like five outlines, the me against the world, and I can't remember them all, and we all have that story anyways. But what happens a little bit, and I tell this to new people, is that can really backfire. I still remember about the one person that was living in his sister's house, sleeping on the couch, and he was at his most miserablest, blah 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 blah. And I was going, man, this guy turned it around. If he can do it, I can do it. And then as I was doing a little bit more research on him, his sister lived in Beverly Hills in like a 10,000 square foot mansion. I don't know what couch he was sleeping on, but he wasn't having the life that he. Oh, you can exaggerate things. It's okay, appropriate sometimes to get your point across. But when you downright like lie like that, what's going to happen is it's going to come back and bite you at some time. Now, at the point this guy is in his life, he's quite successful. I won't mention his name. He's written some books, and he seems like a pretty genuine guy. But all I can remember when I see him is how he basically led me believe that he was in the basement sleeping on a rotten couch and was miserable and pulled himself out when he wasn't all that that bad.
Yeah, and he probably, we all have a story, so we want to just do our best at telling it because it does humanize us, right? So, yeah,
Oh,
whether it will
I'll
discredit people and hurt the trust if they're making
well,
stuff up, right?
I'll be honest. If he would have told the story the way I found out about it, I probably wouldn't even have thought much about him. I mean, who's crying about a guy living in Beverly Hills in a mansion on his sister's couch? Obviously, somebody has some good. I mean, there's some connection there, right? But so I understand it. I'm not like not saying
Yeah.
I don't get it. I'm just saying that you don't have to do that. You don't definitely when you everybody has a great story. Everybody I've ever met has a great story in them of why they do what they do. Okay. Even the most boringest person can say, yeah, like, yeah, it's the only job I could get. But just tell your story and yeah, liven it up a little bit. But you don't need to think that you have to embellish it so much that it becomes unreal. That's it.
Yeah, it really does. And we won't go too deep into that because I want to talk about some more of the struggles that I see. But yeah, it seems that he traded trust for, being human, showing his or humanizing him, which kind of backfired in my opinion. But, be honest, we all get to decide how much of what we share, or how much of our story we share and the ways that we share it. But I really do feel like that's how people can relate. But some of the other things that I see as far as struggles go is we've talked about this so many times and we don't have to go too far deep into it, but it's trying to actually perfect and get something down before we put it out into the world. When in reality, the reverse is true. We will step out into the world and then we learn as we go. We're so many people think that something has to look a certain way or be a certain way, or move something into perfection or a certain version of something before they offer it. But in reality, it can't become what it's meant to be until you just surrender to it and allow it to come to creation. It's almost like we don't want to become a parent until we are 100% ready. And like you cannot foresee
That will
any
never
of it.
work.
Like you can't. So we have to get moving first and allow faith and trust and surrendering to the control that's actually built into the system of being alive, to take
Well,
over. Because
I mean,
otherwise we get stuck, right? Always, and I went through that. I was so stuck because I was trying to reach a level of perfection, or my ego was talking, or my intellect was like, you got to figure all this out. That I thought that I needed to figure out before I hit go, but you have to hit go and then you figure it out, right?
yeah, there's that yeah, that reasonable where you have to when good is good enough. I mean, good is I know there's also sayings good is the enemy of great and all this other stuff, but the fact is that you can take it and do and refine until you're dead. Okay, so you just can't do it. That's where we come up with that 80%. You look at it, don't put out crap and don't put yourself out there, but don't try to be a perfect. I think I like public speaking. That a lot of people that's like supposedly the number one fear. Above dying, which is just weird for me to think about that, but I don't know who they're talking to. But the fear of public speaking. So you're going to become a perfect public speaker before you I mean it's not rational. You got to say, well, I got to get better, but just don't start off with an audience of 2 million. Start off with learning to talk one on one, and then two on one, and then a group of people, but don't stop your whole life trying to get perfect. I mean, I'm talking from experience. I'm a recovering perfectionist, as Laura can tell you. And what that means is that I don't finish a lot of things because it's not I put a lot of work into it, but it's not quite done. It's not perfect enough. And I've learned how to get past that. But yeah, that's a big one. So if you're a perfectionist, get out of your own way and put yourself out there and use it as a test, right? Put it out there and see what people say. What do you think besides speaking in? What do you think people putting themselves out there? Because I know the answer to this. What's their biggest fear for not putting themselves out there? Well, so for example, they're in a group. I'll give you an example. In your group, you ask people to introduce themselves, and most people do. But why do some people not do that? Because I used to be that person. So it's like, why do they not want to introduce themselves. What I mean, if they're not interested in the group, that's something different. But when they really want to be a part of a group and they don't introduce themselves, that's kind of, that's weird to me. It's like, yeah, I really want to put myself out there and learn how to do this, but I won't talk and I won't put myself out there. So why do you
Well,
think people don't put themselves out there? What's the
well,
number one?
for me, I think thinking back to my experience of never even being on Zoom, never even turning on my camera, we all went through that whole like, I used to shake when I'd go up to talk to somebody. I
Yeah.
was like, oh my, like my heart would start pounding. I just wasn't used to, allowing myself to be seen. And it was scary for me. And um, I just, I think it's just really comes down to fear, nervousness, unknown. We don't know what that entails. And it's very much out of character for a lot of people. But it doesn't mean that it's not necessary, right? It's just something that we haven't done before. So it's uncomfortable. And it's learning really to move through that discomfort and saying, oh, I can benefit from a community. Oh, I can be a part of something that can serve me and other people, and really meditating on or concentrating on the benefits that it can bring everybody instead of focusing on the fear and the worry and the oh my gosh, what if I make a fool of myself kind of thing. It's really moving towards fear. Yeah, I remember I heard a quote, um and someone they just said, step forward towards everything that scares you, because that shows you what you can, or maybe I made that quote up actually. It shows you what you can move past. It shows you what your next level of challenge is. If it scares you, that's a good sign, and I think it stops a lot of people. But the other thing is, when we come to marketing what we do and we're sharing our message and we're sharing the solutions and the products or whatever it is that we're putting out there, we have to learn how to use our voice, and we have to learn how to articulate some of these things like we talked about earlier. Um, but people that haven't really learned how to do that energetically consistently tend to stay quiet. And what I'm noticing is that the ability to participate and step into a group and speak up and, apply what someone's learning and ask questions and really just engage in a community is directly proportionate to the ability to share what you do in a marketing sense. So, I think it just has a lot to do with fear. And I think that it has to do a lot with being very green in the area of trusting the process, trusting that the more you speak up, the more you show up, the more you put yourself out into the world, the easier it gets, the more people will know you, the more friends you'll make, the more connections, the better you get at telling your story. And just relationships and networking and those referrals that there's, like I said before, there's so many benefits just to being in a community. um but if we don't learn how to use our own voice and just get into that habit, we aren't ever going to exercise that muscle. So
Well, I think it might come down to two things. There's the fear thing, because I've dealt with this with myself and employees. Some people have it, some don't, right? So I think you might want to ask yourself, is it a fear of an irrational fear that's holding you back, or is it that you don't know how to do it? They're two different things. So I'll give you an example. I had we kind of put these little take one boxes out to places, and I had this one employee. This is like, you walk into the place and you say, "Do you mind if I put this here?" That's all you have to say. They'll say yes, they say no. And he would sit outside a place for like 20 minutes, 30 minutes and get his courage to go up and say that. I had another employee that was very successful at it. And what he knew is what he knew is he had to get like 20 boxes out. So he knew that for every 5 person, he'd get one box. And tell you how different that is he came in and he was, he was laughing. I said, what's so funny? He goes, oh, I went into this, this teriyaki restaurant, and this lady, she just got really irate at me for wanting to put our box there. So I was like, whatever. And I was leaving, and she ran out to the next shop and was pointing at me and telling the person not to let me in there. And I thought, wow, what is wrong with her? And he's just laughing about it. I said, so what'd you do? He goes, oh, I went in there anyways. Asked what was going on, and then I just went on and I got my boxes out. Whereas the other guy sat there and would shake and not even go into the place. And so I was looking at both of these guys and I was thinking, they're two really good guys, but what's going on here? And one of them was so afraid of rejection that he got rejected by not doing it. And the other guy didn't care. He just didn't care. And he was more successful because of that. So I think that you have to, and maybe we've all been there, but I think you have to ask yourself because there's a different fix for each of them. But either way, it's going to hold you back. You need to ask yourself, which side are you on? And then you can address it. If you're on the side of you're afraid of criticism, you're afraid of failure, you're afraid of, you need to do some work on yourself. And this is a great place to do it. And if you're on the other side that you just don't know how, that's the easiest fix. You just learn how and you start doing it, right? Yeah. So I know we're working with you, Laura, sometimes, and you're working with some of our staff, and you just come sometimes afterwards, you'll look at me and say, what do they not know how important their job is that to other people, not how important their job is to pay the bills, but how important what they give to people. And you just shake your head. And I have students that will say the same thing. Do you know what you guys are doing for us? And young people don't know that. So I think the way to do it, first off, is to get into the communities and start sharing and not worry about anything. And if you're suspect of what to share, I mean, I don't know if that's an issue that anybody would have, like, how much do I share? Do you think, am I off a little bit, or do you think people are afraid to kind of to share to a group, like
They are.
well, I know one person said, I'm just a really private person and I don't want anybody to know this about me. And I don't know how to work with that person. I'm going, well, I'm not telling you to tell them where you live. I'm not telling you to, but if you have something you want to give out, I think you're going to have to get over yourself. I don't know. What do you
Yeah,
think?
you do. Yeah, it's kind of funny because I've never given up my privacy. I still consider myself a private person, even though I'm very vulnerable and transparent. So I feel like what that means to each of us is something that we grow into. Um, that's what I think. But we do have to choose. Are we going to live in fear and worry and fear of criticism and fear of putting ourselves out there, or are we actually going to step into our power and put ourselves, our message, our energy out into the world? And I love what you said. Just show up in the communities, engage, ask questions. Everybody really wants to help each other out. Everybody wants to be, a part of a journey and a part of a community. So I love that you said just show up and if you're in this soulpreneur global community, do a video introduction on yourself. You want people to feel your energy. You want them to know what you do. You want them to start to be like, oh, this person really resonates with me. I know that so and so and my family is going through what they're helping with. So I do want to say too that you said if you don't know how to do something, I love that you said that's okay because you're not going to know how to do something. I
Yeah.
guarantee you're not like sometimes we're built in, right? With that, we know how to do something, but rarely do we actually know how to do something until we just start doing it and we learn to get better and better over time. And the path kind of unfolds right then and there before you. But I just want to say, because we only have a few minutes left, and I wanted to ask you one more question, Robert. But um, I've also learned that you're on the right path because it disappears. So we have a lot of question and a lot of wonder, like, are we doing the right things? Are we, it's not foreseeable anymore. We don't really know what direction we're going. Like, we can feel it. It's an alignment and a momentary basis, but it's not what we were taught in the 3D physical society that raised us, right? So it's a very different energetic system that we're utilizing now. And I think that gets into the way because it's just one more thing that we don't know. But if you ended up in that community, in any of the communities in the academy, know that like there's something that pulled us all together, right? So I kind of like that, the divine interactions and divine intervention that's kind of bringing all these people together. So I just wanted to reiterate that you're not going to know anything. And if you do know something, then you're going to know exactly what you need to know when you need to know it, but it's not going to feel comfortable like you're used to if you were in corporate or if you, um, if you lived life linearly, right?
Well, when it just becomes what you're saying is when it is comfortable and you're there, you are where you're at. That's going to keep you where you are. You have to get to the uncomfortable. So you said something about people. Well, some people are natural and stuff, and I'll come back and say, even the most natural, gifted athlete, business person, one thing they all have in common is they all have coaches. They all have people telling them, you're not as good as you think you are yet. You could be better than you are even now. Doesn't mean they don't build on their strengths. So there are people that are more natural than you at public speaking, or you have your gifts, I have my gifts. But no matter where you're at, you're starting right there. So if everybody thinks about wherever you're starting, oh yeah, but that guy's really good. You know what? He's just starting where he's at too. He's just where he's at, and you are just where you're at. And as soon as you get in that comparison, you'll never do anything, because every time you do that, you're going to find somebody else. Oh, I got 5 videos out. You're going to find somebody that does 50 a day. It's just yeah. So I think the two main things about getting out there and groups is just participate, right? Just participate and just be kind, and participate. Don't be bossy, and don't be telling people what to do, and just be kind and
Yeah.
participate, and you'll learn how to do the rest of it as you do it. Every post you'll get better. I look
Yeah.
back at some of the first posts I put on Facebook, and I'm like going, geez, that doesn't do anything for me. And I laugh at it though. I don't look down at myself. I just got better. Well, you know what? In 2 years from now, I'm going to look back at what I posted today. And I'm going to say the same thing, because that's how we grow. Okay.
Yeah,
So you had a question, or?
yeah, I do. But yeah, you can't get better. You can't get better unless you're practicing. And we're not practicing if we're holding back. So yeah, definitely engage, inspire, cheer each other on. Like what you put out there, you get back. So the more that you encourage other people, the more that you support other people, the more, people that you talk to and you mesh with, or you decide you don't, like all of that is part of the learning journey.
Oh, and
But I,
one more thing, since we're talking social media and stuff, don't get angry at people. Don't get mad when people say stupid things to you, not to you or about you. Actually look at that and say, is there any truth in that? Do I need to change? If there is no truth to it, move on. Just move on. There's a lot of people out there that want to ruin your day. If there's some truth about it, that's a great information to know. They may not set it well, but and then make an improvement, and that's how you grow. A lot of people, I think it was somebody in your group was saying that they were afraid to look at the comments on a post they did. And I think we've all been there before, because you put your heart into things. But I've had people say things that, I'd want to punch them in the face afterwards. But usually there's a grain of truth in that, in what they said. Because I always use this analogy, is if Laura has a white car, okay? If I came in and told her, your blue car is the ugliest car I've ever seen, it would affect, no emotions would go at all. She would look at me and say, okay, that's interesting, Robert, because she doesn't have a blue car. So when you're looking at these things and people are commenting and they're saying things, you don't know what state of mind they're in. They could have had the worst day ever. They may misunderstood what you said and took it wrong. Everybody's had that. So make sure when you're getting out there that expect it to happen, and then just be okay with it. That's
yeah.
all I got to say.
Yeah, I like that. And use discretion when you hear comments from anybody. And I also say we don't have too much time to go into this, but I also say, negative comments, they help your views. So you want people, you want people to just comment, but yeah, definitely use discretion. And then there are two things that I wanted to mention from the one of the communities that I have from two students. One is that the students were challenged to make their first video in one of the assignments. And, when I said, after she had completed the assignment, I said, how did that feel to you? Scale of 1 to 10. And I think she said like a 3. And when everybody else voted her work, there were like 9 and 10. They're like, that was amazing. And she's like, it's my first video ever. So when we're judging our work, that's another sign of us getting the ego, getting the intellect in the way, and holding ourselves back from putting things out there because we're judging it. We are not allowed to do that because her video would have helped and will help a lot of people. And when we're not offering that to humanity because of our own thoughts, then we're actually getting in the way of creation itself. So, and expansion and what we're here to do. The other thing, the other story that I wanted to share from the community is one of the students said, she was very quiet a lot of the class. And finally she said, she actually said this afterwards. She said, I realized that if I couldn't put myself out here in front of this small group of people that were here supporting me, cheering me on, and encouraging me and giving me honest feedback in a kind way, then how was I supposed to put myself out into the whole world? So these communities are a safe space for you to develop and, practice and learn what it is that you need to learn and, get the skill better in the way that you want to. But if we don't participate, then I thought that was very profound because how can we put ourselves out into the world with a bunch of unknown people and expect to help them and to engage and to build relationships and connections and share our story and what we do if we can't even do it with a supportive community? So, Robert, my last question for you before we go is, you built the martial arts academies under the premise that you weren't allowed to tell people what it is that you do because, back in that day and age when martial arts was a secret, it was, hush hush, it was, nobody was supposed to know that you had skill. And
That was the main thing. It was we misunderstood something really we misunderstood it. We were told not to tell anybody that you train and what you do, but what that was is a miscommunication that we didn't understand as young guys. We were thinking, oh, okay, I won't tell anybody because tell me what to do, I'll do it. What the word should have been is don't go around bragging about your skill because nobody likes that and you're going to get in a fight. So shut up and keep it to yourself because it's yours. It had nothing to do with the business side. But when I became a instructor, I kept that same thought. So I would several years, I would not tell anybody what I even did for a living. I mean, it's just looking back at it, I don't even know how I stayed open. But anyways, was your question about kind of how that worked for me or not?
yeah, so
Okay.
I operate on the premise of like building community. You can build a business with organic content. You can build a business organically with networking and referrals. Like I said, I've done it and I know other people that are still doing it. They don't pay a dime for advertising. Some people don't even have websites because they have so many points of contact out there in the world that they're sharing with everybody. So it's a win-win for everybody. So I want to ask you in an opposite sense, how did that
Yeah.
serve the business? How did that serve the
Um,
corporation and the employees? And
just made life really difficult. In fact, actually, we would ask a student before they go into the upper training, okay, which means basically they're committing to, maybe get to the black belt, or they're at least committing for the next 2 years, right? We'd ask them, how many people have you told that you train here? And we were looking for one or two. That's the number we wanted. Anybody that said higher than that, we were like, well, and we would literally tell them afterwards. And like, that's like saying, here's a great service that's going to change your life, but darn it, you better not be telling anybody how good we are. And it didn't serve us at all. It was horrible. So, yeah, this is a long time ago, but when we needed referrals, because that's your best customer, right? um, our best students, because they already know what they're getting into. My instructor would tell me when things were getting tough, he goes, go out there and teach for referral. That's how I knew. Like, what did that mean? To this day, I don't know what it meant. So I counted loud and I made sure that they left all sweaty and drenched. That was it. But never did he say, go out there and tell them to tell people. So later on, like decades, I'm embarrassed about this, but like 20 years, I kind of started to figure out that a referral program is a good thing. And my main instructor that taught me is looking at the sheet of paper we use where it asks the question. And he goes, why do you ask that question? Um, and, I started to explain it. And he goes, if somebody's telling 50 people, you might have a braggart, but gosh, if they're only telling two or three, you must be doing a poor job. And I was like, and he went out and he did demonstrations. He did TV commercials. He told everybody what he did and how he did it and why you should do it. And here we are riding on his coattails and not going out and marketing or promoting because we misunderstood that. So me and one of the instructors got together and we said, wouldn't it be cool if we had a referral only school, meaning that you could not step into our school unless you knew somebody here. And he said that would be so cool. It'd be so easy. We wouldn't really even have to sell. It was just do what we do. And then we looked at each other, and the conversation went something like this: well, why don't we do that? And he goes, yeah, let's do that. Now, fast forward, we got up to about 50%. That was huge, right? Our goal was 100%. We never reached that, and probably never would have, but we got to the point of getting 50% of our students were friends of people that either knew us or trained with us or had heard about us. And we were pretty proud of that. And then it kind of dropped a little bit. But what did we first have to do that? We had to actually tell people to talk about the art. And this, again, there's probably people rolling on the floor laughing. I learned very slowly. That was hard for us. One of the things we had to say, we decided to say this in our class with adults. We had to say, did you like the class today? They'd all say, I mean, when it was a good class, make sure you give a good class. And they all say, yeah. Then we'd say, tell a friend. And that's all we had to say, right? It sounds reasonable, right?
Yeah.
Nope. We'd go out there and we would say, did you guys have fun? They all go, yep. Okay, see you tomorrow. And we just couldn't get it out of our, then we would look at each other.
Conditioned.
Yeah, but we would look at each. No, it wasn't conditioning. It was like we did it. That was hard for us. It was like, I don't know why. And finally, it was one of my instructors. I know we got to go, but one of my instructors finally said it the way he's supposed to say it. And I'm like they're going to revolt. And the next day we got a student out of it. Somebody brought a student in for us. Hey, you told me to tell my friend he wants to join. I'm like going, oh my God, how long? I mean, I'm talking decades. So anyways, if we have just a second, you said you were talking about the person. I think people should ask themselves when they're putting themselves out there, when they get feedback and stuff. If you're brand new to the game, if you are asking people for feedback or how was this video I did, if you're really looking for a compliment because you want to show them how good you did, it's going to crush you when somebody gives you feedback. So don't ask for feedback if that's not what you really wanted. So you got to know, if I put a video out there and I think it's great and I say, hey, Laura, can you give me some advice on this? Do you like it? Or what, how can I do better? You're going to tell me. But if I'm secretly hoping you're going to say, you're brilliant, you're this, and I learned that real quickly not to do that. Just be honest with people. If you want feedback, then expect some ugly stuff. If you don't want feedback, just don't ask.
Okay. Yeah. We're honest here. We're kind here. And I think honesty is best. So yeah, just know that we are honest, but also we respect everybody's journey and what they're doing. And we'd also know that everybody's learning as we go. Right. And when we open those doors for other people to look at our work and say, like, am I clear on this message? Do you understand what I do? It really does just make us better. So
just be honest.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just wanted to say too, we have this issue with realizing that no matter what we do in this world, we're serving people. And a lot of us who are in the front line offering services because we've been through spiritual awakening and expansion and rising in consciousness, we don't necessarily think that we're not serving people, but we forget that CEOs, doctors, nurses, principals, presidents, they're all people, right? They're all people. And we, on average, have between 200 and 250 people in our realm of people that we know. I think the studies were that, I can't remember where I heard this, but the studies were that there's an estimated 250 people at every funeral, or at most funerals, 250 people invited to every wedding. So that is like the zone of influence. If I were to think back in my life and be like, yeah, I have about that many people that I could just, in my phone or on my Facebook that I could connect with over time. And, when we're offering our services, that's a huge benefit because somebody might say, oh, so and so is going through a divorce. This person can help you. Or, oh, so and so has an issue with their pet. This person can help you. Or, this mom that I know is really struggling with balance and finding inner peace. This person can help you. So we just have to remember that we're all serving people. We're all on a level playing field, you know? So, and just to finalize, is that when you get into paid ads, you know, some people love paid ads. I know we do paid ads for the school. We use Facebook and other platforms to do that. There's a cost per lead, right? There's a
Yeah.
cost per lead there that you have to look at in order to know what your numbers are. Because if our cost per lead is $30 at one of the academies, then we know how much that lead costs from the very beginning of them seeing our ad to the very end, getting them in the door and signing them up as a student, right? Well, with community referrals and networking, you don't have to worry so much about that. You're using your energy in a different way. It's still a currency, but it just feels like a more wholesome way. So I'm not saying that it's the only way. I'm just saying it's a good way to find the people that resonate with you and to serve in the best way that you can. So that's all I wanted to say. Do you want to say anything else, Robert, while we wrap up?
No, I think that the key is to start baby stepping it. I mean, some people have a real nervousness about that, and I think that's okay. And I think they should realize that, oh, I'm normal. I'm just hesitant for whatever reason. People don't like criticism, people are afraid of things, or people don't know how. And once you know what side of that you're on, you can fix it. You can fix yourself. You don't even need advice. If you are afraid that somebody's going to say something like that video was stupid or something, and that's going to crush you, you work on yourself more. You need to do some more inner work, right? But that's something everybody on this will know how to do. If the other side is, I just don't know how to talk to people when I go out there, that's easy. There are hundreds of books about that. Win friends and influence people. You can get out, you can figure out how to talk. But if you don't know what side you're on, you're going to hesitate. So I would just tell people to figure out, you know, if they have, is it a fear or of not doing it, or is it not knowing? If it's not knowing, that's easy. Just get on the group and ask.
Yeah,
If it's
exactly.
a fear thing, just be honest, and that there's nothing that's going to happen to you. I'll leave it with one other little short thing about saying things and putting yourself out there. We had a thing that we had to say in the office, and it was basically asking for the sale indirectly. And it was really stupid, something really easy, but we're all really young guys, and we wouldn't do it because we felt like it was a little offensive or something. And maybe they would get upset. And my instructor looked at us and said, he goes, what are you guys afraid of? Do you think what? They're going to throw a punch at you? Like we're all martial artists, black belts, and we're in the office. And we all kind of looked at each other and we said, well, actually, we can know how to deal with that. And he just like hit himself. He goes, so you would rather have somebody throw a punch at you in the office because you know how to deal with it, but you're not going to say these words? And he kind of left a little disgusted. And we're like, well, yeah. Then he came back a little bit later and he said, I get it. You guys don't even understand what you're saying or why you're saying this and how it affects people. Let's talk about it. And he gave us a different viewpoint. He made us the student for a little while, or the customer, or however you want to say that. And it was a very kind thing, and it was a very nice thing to do. And it really qualified the person and allowed them to make a decision. It wasn't forceful at all. But here we are, willing to take a punch and defend against it because we know how to deal with it, and not only how to say a one sentence thing.
Because you
So
don't know how to deal with it.
because we didn't know how to
That's
do
what
it.
we do. Yeah, that's what we do.
Yeah, but we knew, right? But here's the thing: we were honest with him. He asked us, and we told him we didn't say it. We were honest, and because of that, we got it fixed. So that's what I'll leave you with: is
Okay.
everybody's been there, and we have all made the mistakes, and we're going to make tons more. So just be honest and don't post anything when you're mad.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. And for me to finalize, join the Soulpreneur global community if you're not a part of it already. Get in there, introduce yourself. If you're a part of it, I challenge you to introduce yourself by video. I feel it's a really good way for
Oh,
people to
wow,
feel your
that's good.
energy. And also take on the TikTok challenge because we have to get ourselves out of our own way. That means getting the intellect, getting the ego out of the way, stepping into your power and showing the world what it is that you offer, but also leaning on those of us that are here to support you and your light and help you do that. So thank you for joining us, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.